Tell me about I Love You, Man, because as I said at the beginning, I fucking love that movie.
Thank you so much.
And you were in New York at the time, so to me, it's kind of like a love letter to L.A.
Well, I can speak to that.
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, so I was bi-coastal, based in New York.
At that point, you were bi-coastal.
I had a place here in L.A.
Which is badass. That's pretty sweet. When that happened, were you like, yeah...
Well, it was pretty cool, except that I really wanted to move out here. So
okay.
I was like the only the
drawback was you're stuck.
Disenchanted bi-coastal guy. But
that's a good quote.
Yeah, exactly. The audience is going, well, just a fucking asshole. He's talking about Pilates and not being happy with homes
and Italian Reds.
Yeah. Well, I was honest with you about that. And the Manhattans, too. Let's not forget about the
Manhattans. Oh, yeah. Good point. I'll add that in there.
You can, by the way, $15-$16, get a great Italian Red. I mean, I'm normally... $30 is a lot for me. You do not have to spend a lot of money for a great bottle of
Where do you go? Bevmo? We talking to Bevmo?
Yeah, please. No. I'll get my spirits at Bevmo. Some
of us have to be Bevmo club members.
I'm a club member. I have the card. It's in my wallet. I was there 2 days ago.
Where do you go to get an Italian Red? I'll get one this week.
Domain LA. It's a really cool little wine shop on Melrose. Melrose and like near La Brea.
Okay.
Little strip
mall. I'll go this week.
And you go and you tell her, this is what I want. What's your budget? I want to spend $15.
I'll say, can I get the Hamburg?
Yeah, tell her the Hamburg. Yeah. She knows me. Jill, the owner. And,
I will.
She'll hook you up.
Okay.
That's it.
So you're bi-coastal. I love you, man. You're right. You're right. I love you, man.
I love L.A. Okay. And
You do. You like it better than New York.
I like both, but I like living here at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And because when you're from someplace, it loses some of the romance. But I born and raised in New York City, so it doesn't have the romance that people who aren't born there have.
But New York's so big, can't you find a different area to find the romance?
You can. And I moved downtown. I lived in a different place that I grew up in. But I loved L.A. Everything about it.
I do too. So
I love the light. I love the weather. I love going to Venice, the East Side, West. I just am in. I like LA.
All the different cultures.
Yeah,
neighborhoods are so different. Yeah,
it's cool. So I wrote this movie, I Love You, Man, based on a script by another writer named Larry Levin, but I wrote just my own version.
Yeah,
and I set it in LA. That script that he wrote was set, I think, in Chicago or something. And part of it was a love letter to LA.
It was.
Yes, it was like. Paul Rudd's character lives in Los Feliz.
Right.
And Jason Segel lives in Venice.
Yeah.
And that spoke to me of these two different types of guys.
Yeah.
And early on, I remember that one of the heads of the studio was going, we can make this so much cheaper.
In Atlanta or something.
Well, at this point, this was out of nowhere. Connecticut.
Oh.
I was like, dude. There's nothing wrong with Connecticut, but what's the city there? Am I supposed to set it in Bridgeport?
Fairfield?
I don't understand. I'm from the East Coast. I know Connecticut.
Right.
I love the pizza at Frank Pepe in New Haven, but
it's just suburbia. Really.
Where am I? Where would any of this take place?
Yeah.
And to his credit, he was like, you've sold me. I totally get it. We're going to support you doing this movie in LA, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because part of the reason I wanted to set I Love You, Man in LA is you have this big city, right, and millions of people, yet it can be quite lonely because unlike New York, you're not interacting on the streets.
Right.
So you can just be in your own pod.
Totally.
You're in your home. You're in your car.
You're in your home
can go days without seeing a human being. That's probably why you started this podcast.
That's true. I work from home. I literally never go.
Right. The man, let me describe to the podcast listeners. The man,
he's got those smell lines coming off him.
Yeah, it seems like he hasn't had contact with another human being in at least a week.
Take me.
Yes, since the last podcast. There you go.
So basically, you were disenchanted by coastal. You love this town. You aspired to be here full time, and you wrote this movie. That's great.
I did. Don't get me wrong. I love New York, and I loved my time there. And I'm fortunate I have a place there, so I can go there sometimes.
So when you're the writer and the director, I can't imagine you're doing a ton of this. But do you have locations in mind, or do you have places like the fish taco place notoriously on the end of Venice Boulevard or the Venice
James Beach,
whatever? Yeah. Well, was that like somewhere that you had already known and loved or something?
That place I learned. I actually wrote that initially as Father's Office, and they were going to get hamburgers. Do you know that restaurant?
Yeah.
It's a great hamburger restaurant. Great restaurant.
I gotta look that up.
But
I love
it's like
burgers.
hot. It's like a gastro pub. You can't make any substitutions. You're
I'm
like
gonna
in
look
this
that
guy's
up.
world, and it's amazing. There's one in Santa Monica and one in Culver City.
Okay.
But I love their hamburgers. So I was like, Sydney and Peter's first mandate is at Father's office.
Right.
And that was too much of a pain to shoot in. And so we scouted, and Jason's character lived in Venice. That was scripted, that he lived in Venice.
Right.
And we found James Beach, and we tried their, I was like, what's your best dish? The fish tacos. They were delicious.
So you kind of went out and scouted a little bit.
We scouted.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was a cool location. And now if you go to James Beach restaurant,
they have
it
a
says,
sign
like, there's a sign. I
always
love you,
park
man.
right there when I take people down to there.
Oh, that's funny. The I love you, man, fish tacos.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and then all the houses in the hills where Lou Ferrigno's house was, it was kind of like, it was scripted like his house is in the hills,
Yeah. Nelson Franklin I've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
He was in I Love You Man.
Yep.
I think that was like his first big break.
Yeah.
And then I see you did something with Drunk Wedding.
Yes.
I just had Dan Gill on the podcast.
Oh, he's hilarious.
That was like his first big break.
Yes.
You ever think about that? Like,
It's cool.
how many lives you changed with the work you've done?
No, I don't. Only
Let's
I only
let's
think
reflect on that
my
for a
own
second.
life. Yeah, how I've changed my own life with the
No,
stuff
I'm
I've
pretty
done.
sure that was Nelson Franklin's first big thing.
Nelson, I knew because his dad is a very
Big
talented
writer.
screenwriter,
Yeah.
Howard Franklin, and Nelson is super talented. And when you
he's
make
great.
these movies, you have the big parts, and then the smaller parts. You just go. It's almost like you look at a board and you go, okay, where can I love this person. Where can I fit
Wait, so
them in?
you do some casting too?
Yeah, and when you direct
Wow.
them, you cast them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, I guess that makes sense.
You
I
have a
never really think
casting
about that.
director, but you're
Right.
ultimately it's your
call.
choice. Yeah.
That's great.
So you work like Allison Jones, who is a great casting director.
yeah.
She cast I Love You Man. She loved Nelson, and if you look at her credits, he's in like everything she
Yeah.
cast. And so she brought him in.
You want to get on her radar.
No, well, she's amazing. As is the woman Rachel Tenner who did Why Him With Me, my last movie. Yeah, I mean, she, we were talking, and you go like, okay, I love Nick Kroll. Where can I put Nick Kroll in? Or at the time, Aziz Ansari had auditioned for some part in I Love You Man before he became this huge phenom. And you're like, oh, you know what? He wasn't right for that part, but maybe he could be one of Paul Rudd's fencing buddies, and or Rob Hubel. Suddenly, Tom Lennon, who has been a friend of mine for years, and is
really
truly a comic.
Did you know him at
genius.
Tisch or something?
Mike Showalter, who I've mentioned a few times, he was one of my roommates at Brown, but he was in the comedy group, the New Group, or that began State.
Oh, you're right.
At Tisch, at NYU. He left and went to Brown. But I met all those guys very early on when they were in college.
That's something too with I Love You Man. It is stacked. Every single character is huge.
There's a lot of good people.
God, I love that movie, man.
Thanks.
I've watched that movie so much.
I appreciate it. You try to make these movies to that hopefully they do well in their theatrical run, but more importantly almost is that they have a life afterwards.
Yeah.
They're
they
for
resonate.
people to just hang out in their homes and watch. What do you want? I kind of need a feel-good movie tonight. Let's put on whatever. That's the goal. You don't always.
And this is one of the big things that I think any person that makes content wants. Is that's one of the few movies I share with people a lot because I just really like, especially if you live in LA and you haven't seen it. I think you just have to see it.
Yeah, that's great. With all these movies, that's what you're going for. So it's honestly quite meaningful to meet anybody who is like, yeah, I watch that movie a lot, or it's you like it. That's these comedies. They don't always get the respect of critics,
right?
Certainly awards. You don't get any of that, but that's fine. We get audience if you make them and they're good. You tend to get audiences into them, you know, in the years after you make them.